Greetings and welcome to the DCS video interview. This is the first of our reentry series where we're looking to highlight successful reentry stories and bringing them to the public's attention. We're starting this series with Mr. Kevin Skidmore. Mr. Kevin Skidmore recently won the DCS Private Stakeholder of the Year Award. Due to his partnership with the Dekalb steering team, he has a compelling and amazing story to tell. And so we're looking forward to sharing that with you all today. I'm joined today by our Dekalb community coordinator, Ms. Sharon Allman, who also recently was awarded the non-sworn Employee of the Year. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so happy to be here.
And thank you, Mr. Skidmore, for joining both of us today and just taking time to share your story and just be authentic and genuine as possible. It's a casual conversation because, as we discussed, the main thing is just we want to encourage others who may have similar stories and just to share the impact of our mission with others. So with that, I'll just kind of turn it over to Ms. Allman, just kind of share an overview of the Dekalb steering team and the efforts of reentry services in the Dekalb area, as well as introduce a little bit further Mr. Skidmore. Sharon?
Well, thank you so much, Brian. I'm so glad to be here, and this is a wonderful opportunity to expand on the wonderful services that we have in Dekalb County with reentry services. One thing I want to talk about is our steering committee. And this is how I've actually met Mr. Skidmore. Our steering committee is comprised of the public-private sector. It is made up of individuals who operate entities such as housing, employment services, healthcare services. When I look at individuals who are coming home from out of incarceration, we wanted to make sure that they had the proper supports to be successful. So part of that mandate is to make sure that we have everyone, our stakeholders out in the community to help us fulfill that plan. So I'm just so excited to know that those individuals that are in DeKalb County help us to make sure that there's no service delivery gaps. So when you look at someone coming home, they need housing, they need health care, they need employment, they need mental health care services. We want to make sure that we're connecting them with mentorship capacities and capabilities. So I have a phenomenal steering committee, and we have some great co-chairs. The DeKalb County Public Defender's Office is one of my co-chairs. Mr. Skidmore, of course, is one of my co-chairs. I have a co-chair in the faith-based arena, Dr. Ferguson. And so together, they help us to make business decisions to carry out the operations plan. And if it was not for the steering committee actually making sure that we have those resources in the community, we could not be as successful as we have been in the community. So I'm very thankful for those individuals. They are an extended arm of what we do in reentry services in DeKalb County. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to everyone a young man who I had a personal opportunity to meet through an email encounter probably almost 4 years ago. Yes. I'll never forget, wow. He sent me an email, and in the email, he shared a little bit about his story. He shared with me how he wanted to give back to the community, how he wanted to make a positive impact and make a difference. And from that email, I'll never forget, I was relatively new myself. I've been in this role for 4 years as of November 1st. I went to our chief. I talked to our chief about it. We did a little investigative work just to make sure we could onboard him in this capacity. And I reached out and I brought him in for a face-to-face interview.
So he was one of your first partners?
He was one of my first partners.
Very good, very good.
And he came into the interview and we just talked. I think we met for over an hour, and I could feel his passion for reentry services because I knew how important it was not to just get a steering committee comprised of the public-private sector and of stakeholders, but we needed to have someone on board that had actually went through incarceration, who could say to me without any feeling bad about it, Mrs. Allman, no, that's not going to work, or yes, that will work. And he has just been a phenomenal resource to me on a personal and a professional level. And he's always given me innovative things that we can do to bring a positive impact, to bring families together. And so I'd like to say to all of those listening audience out there. This is a phenomenal man, Mr. Kevin Skidmore, who is the CEO and executive director, and he owns his own trucking company called 440 Trucking. And I'd like to introduce you to him at this time, Mr. Kevin Skidmore.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you again for joining us. So we'll just kind of jump right into the interview, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Any remarks before we get started? Any kind of opening remarks?
Yes to all of the listeners. I'll say this on the front end. The greatest thing that you can do is participate in Young Rescue.
Okay.
And then we can
go from
move forward. Yeah.
All right. So just to kind of get to know you a little bit, let's share your early background and personal life experiences. Feel free to discuss kind of the lessons learned from past decisions and those kind of justice-involved situations that Ms. Allman just mentioned, just to kind of give us a background and introduction on who you are and, what you represent.
Okay, so I was born, contrary to my accent, how I sound now, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we moved here when I was 12. And that was a tough transition for me. In New Orleans, I was exposed to a lot of violence. I've seen people kill, rob, you name it. I saw it before 12. Mm-hmm. So you kind of used to it. Not saying it's okay, but that's just what you've seen. Mm-hmm. Moved here. It was a tough transition. I didn't want to be here. I went through the teenage thing. You know how teenagers just don't want to cooperate, don't want to go with the flow or anything. And by 16, I was arrested for armed robbery. How I got into this justice system, when we moved here, my mother had a house in New Orleans, and there the economy is really bad, and it was tough for her to sell the house. Her job at AT&T was, they were closing, and they gave her 3 options: move to Atlanta, Chicago, or LA. She chose Atlanta, and we came here, and I'm an only child. And I was accustomed to kind of getting what I want. Mm-hmm. And we moved here, that changed. And at 12, 13, I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand why you couldn't get me what you could get me before we moved here. I didn't understand that she had to pay the mortgage in New Orleans and the rent here. She had bills in 2 states. I couldn't understand it. And I felt like I was going to help her. I was going to help her help me. And I would go get the stuff that I wanted on my own. And it started with little petty crimes. Stealing candy out of the store, selling at school. Then I graduated, and the more stuff I got away with, the bolder I got. I moved into selling drugs, and eventually I ended up selling drugs. Didn't really like that too much. I was young, and the older guys, we couldn't really take their customers, so I was still closed out of the mall, and again, she was at a point where she really couldn't do much for me. In my mind, I thought I was justified. Like, I'm helping her help me. And eventually, I got introduced to the robbing. And that was what I was doing. And by 16, I was arrested for armed robbery. I'm on the first group of juveniles in Dekalb to be sentenced under Senate Bill 440. That was the juvenile crime bill that passed in May 94 that mandated that for one of the 7 deadly sins that juveniles can be moved directly to adult court. Also in conjunction with 440, I was sentenced under Senate Bill 441, which is the mandatory 10-year sentence for armed robbery. And again, I was in the first group. I spent about 2 months in Panthersville Juvenile. And after that, they moved all of us to the jail. And you had a bunch of young teenagers ranging from 13 to 16, all of us with capital crimes facing 10 years to life. Some of us got life sentences. I got 10 years. We went to trial. Actually, I had a co-defendant. It was 2 of us together, and we ended up going to trial. He testified against me. And I'm sharing this because I want listeners to understand the impact of sometimes doing time is not that bad. It actually saved my life. I was really young, really reckless. A lot of my friends had got killed young. My best friend got killed at 14. He got his brains blown out. Like, I was kind of death struck. And I really believed that I was going to die next. I honestly did. And that's why I was so reckless. And my co-defendant testified against me, went to trial. He testified against me. He was released the same day they gave me the 10 years. 2 years later, he was murdered. Mm. So, I wouldn't trade places with him for anything. But that could have been me. So I do say that sometimes that sitting down is not all that bad. And that's how I look at life. Sometimes, your life is derailed and you point in another direction, but sometimes it's to save you. And in that instance, once I got found guilty, it was a look I saw on my mother's face. And I knew I messed up. And I vowed then that I wouldn't come back. And that was one of the pivotal points in my life where I was like, you know what, this is not it. She didn't deserve this. And all she did was try to work and take care of me. And in my young mind, I couldn't understand that she was working as hard as she was just to provide. But I couldn't understand that she couldn't do what she could before.
Wow. Wow, Kevin, that is some story. And it's not really a story, it's the truth, it's facts. And so that pivotal moment turned your life around and now you're giving back to the community. So what services did you receive to help you re-enter the community? Feel free to discuss any of those services with us at this time, such as employment, assistance, food stamps, housing. Who was there for you to help you transition, or services that you received when you got out?
Honestly, nobody.
Mm-hmm.
I got out in 2005. Mm-hmm. What you all do now didn't exist. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to go through the transitional center, which made a big difference. I was among the first to go to Clayton Transitional that had a mandatory sentence, because initially it was set up for individuals that were paroling out. Mm-hmm. And my mother had launched her nonprofit called Mothers Advocating Juvenile Justice. And they had fought Senate Bill 440 for at least 7-8 years, trying to get it repealed. Their whole thing was, these are kids. If you take and interview them now, they're going to say something different. Like, they didn't mean what they did. They were just kids, but they were fighting to repeal it. And she had met a lot of people. And with her help, I was able to get sent to Clayton Transitional. And from there, I worked at McDonald's while I was there. I needed that transition because coming home from incarceration, you have like this film that's still on you. And it's a lot of habits you develop in prison that you still have with you that you really have to break out of. And you don't realize you have them. Like, one of the habits was when I first came home and I was at my mother's house, I still get up at like 5 a.m. and stand up for count. Like, you still, I would come home, I would shower and wash my underclothes in the shower. I did it for so long, it was just habitual. But those things, I had to learn to break out of. When I was at Clayton Transitional, the first day I went to work, I got on the bus and went to the back of the bus and watched everybody on the bus. That's what I was accustomed to. And in my mind, I'm thinking they watching me and these people wouldn't pay me no attention. but that's that film you have to kind of, and you don't realize you have those habits. And it took a while. It took me months to really break out of it. Once I recognized it, to really to break out of it and get out of that. Because again, you're in a hostile environment 24 hours a day, and you just like to develop those habits. The only help I had was my drive, my desire to make it. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of Clayton Transitional, I found out about Trojan Battery. And I'll say another pivotal point, while I was incarcerated at Frank Scott State Prison, they had an unwritten rule that you could take one trade per sentence. And I had taken up, my first trade was graphic arts. So I took up graphic arts, graduated, and me and another friend of mine was like, what are we going to do now? We got all this time left. And we wanted to take a second trade, and the counselor said we couldn't. They said we had to get out and come back to take another one. So that's what they told us. So he was like, let's challenge it. And I'm like, how? He's like, let's just fight it. Let's fight it. So we went to the chief counselor and petitioned them. She said no. We went all the way up to the deputy warden. And the deputy warden said, you know what, take a second. And that moment told me, I know it's not good English, but ain't no no. That told me ain't no no's. And I felt like I could conquer the world after that. Because again, they said we couldn't do it, and we fought it, and we were able to do it.
Wow.
So when I got out and found out about Trojan Battery, I called them every day for a month. Because I had the ain't no mentality. So
good persistence.
I kept calling. I called so much they knew my name, they knew my voice. And I'll never forget the lady's name, Heather Boss. She said, "This Kevin, yes ma'am it is. Just come tomorrow 8:45. I'll be there." And I stayed there 13 years. And I stayed there 13 years, and I was doing well. I started with my trucking company, which I'll come back to in a minute. I started my trucking company in 2014, and I was doing well, making a good bit of money. I bought my house in 2011, which was also a real big thing for me because I no longer had to worry about where I'm going to live.
Mm.
I had to go to, when I got out and I was ready to move out of my mother's house, I went to 30 different apartment complexes looking for somewhere to live. And I got a lot. Everybody said no. Everybody, it was your background. But I just, again, I had the ain't no mentality. So I just kept going. And I finally found an apartment that would accept me. And it was in the same area where I got in trouble. Around the same people.
Mm.
Same people. But I was different. So now instead of hanging with them, I'm riding past them going to work.
Mm.
You know, so it's you're able to exist in that same environment if you're different.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned. I was different. And also when you let people know that you're different, they won't bring that stuff to your doorstep. So the same people I knew before, they wouldn't come at me with the other stuff. They knew I wasn't even about, I'm going to work. Y'all, don't even talk to me too long.
It sounds like you really did the work to kind of, set some foundational values for yourself, the boundaries, just truly rebrand and reform yourself, truly.
Yes.
What kind of transitioning and talking about that pivot a little bit, what led you to start 440 Trucking? You're living this, reformed life. You bought your house, started a family. Kind of take us from that point from, I guess, home ownership to starting your company.
So 2011, I was at my apartment and my mother called me and she said, "Hey, I need you to come to this address." Huh? And I went ahead and came and she was like, "I want you to buy this house." I hadn't even thought about buying a house. I was, I didn't realize that was something I could do. I was just working and staying free. And I'm like, I'm going to get the house. She's like, I'm going to call the agent and y'all going to set up and how's your credit? I don't know. I pay everything on time for as I know. They ain't cut nothing off. And she hooked me up with the agent and we ran my credit. Actually, my credit was decent. It was good enough to get approved. And we did she ran, I gave all the paperwork, the tax returns, and I ended up getting the house. And it was a big move for me because, again, I didn't have to worry about where I was going to live. And after that, in 2014, I'll say this, my life changed. My life changed when I actually changed the people that was around me. And I really want to highlight that. Mm-hmm. And again, I didn't have people around me that would get into trouble, but initially I didn't have people around me that were elevating. I would just have people around me that were kind of where I was. And I got into management when I was at Trojan. Again, I've always had the drive, desire to succeed and do well. And being at one point is never enough for me. So I always wanted more. And I ended up being in management. And I want to highlight this for those listening. If you have done time, remember that if you've done time, it's nothing you can't deal with. And how I got in management, there was they had laid off the third shift at the job. They lost a customer, laid off the whole third shift. And FYI to those who are working and, I don't care about this job, let them lay off. You're going to change your tune. So they will bring the third shift back. And the supervisor was really, really nasty, really, really mean. And nobody wanted to work for him. I'm like, I will. And that's how I ended up in management. And I would not lie, he's tough to work with. But again, my mentality, I did 10 years in prison. There's nothing he could do to me. I'm going home after 8 hours. And once I got into management, the people around me changed. And I got around people who were doing some real big things. And that caused me to change the way I dress. I even had stopped wearing tennis shoes for a while. I was just on this, I need to really transform. If I want to be here, I need to act like that. Mm-hmm. So I got around some other people and they introduced me to trucking. And the people who introduced me to it, they don't even drive. And I got into trucking, and my goal with 440 Trucking was to help people like me. I always want to help people like me. I know how it is to get out and not have any assistance or not have a clear path on how to make it. I mean, getting out and trying to figure it out is really, really tough. And it's discouraging at times when you don't know what to do, where to go. A lot of times family can't help because they don't know. And that was what I wanted to do. I launched a company, and my goal was to stabilize it and to go back and help people like me, give them a job. I'm like, hey, if I can give them a job, I can coach them and counsel them because I ain't finna play with none of them. I'm finna show you how to make it, but we're not gonna play about it. And that's when I launched 440 Trucking in 2014. 2017, God was pulling at my heart, and he was like, you're doing well, you're making a lot of money, but who you helping? Like, and I remember like he was pulling at my heart so hard, and it was like, I didn't put you here just for you. I put you here to help other people. And that's when I just was like, you know what? Let me see. Let me not ignore it. Mm-hmm. And I got online and I was looking like, how can I help? How can I help? And I found Dekalb, Department of Community Supervision. I was like, okay. And this is the funny part. I've never been on parole or probation. I've never been. So I saw the name Sharon Arm. So okay, Dekalb, I'm gonna email her. In my mind, I thought it was community service. So I'm like, well, I want to begin. I know I had to start somewhere. So I just wanted to start. So I emailed her, I sent some bullets, said, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Not knowing this the whole time this is the probation office. I didn't know that. And I emailed and she was very responsive, called me in for an interview. And I remember getting there and I walked in the lobby and I'm like, what is this? Place here. And she's like, you know yet? No. And once I found out where I was in the right place. Mm-hmm. And that's where it all began. And once I got connected to her, many, many other opportunities began to open up. And that's how I knew I was in the right lane. And again, God was putting that in my heart more. And I don't like to throw numbers out there, but I want to for the listeners, mm-hmm. especially those who come home from incarceration. I was at Trojan Battery. I was making $75,000 a year. And I was like, you know, God was putting that in my heart, like, I got something bigger I need you to do. And I walked away from that. And to most, that's a nice little stable income to be making. You could do some things. You could rebuild your life. I make way more than that now, you know. But just having the heart to help other people. Like, so he pulled at my heart. I left, and things have been phenomenal since I have left. I have, and what I notice, the people that I do encounter, the people I do touch, seeing somebody else who's been where they've been, it makes a difference. Honestly, I get a whole different level of respect. Once they find out, oh, I did time too. And they don't know till I tell them. I don't project myself like I don't. If I don't tell people I've done time, they'll never know. And that's why I try to encourage individuals to understand that you don't have to look like what you've been through. You don't. And people, when they see you, they buy into you when they see you. That can help get you into that next door. But if you come in there looking any kind of way, like, hold on, wait on that side. We'll get to you. I don't know if I answer your question. Not what.
Absolutely. I just appreciate, the genuine way that you presented the story. I think there's just so many ways from your evolution from just not being content. I think that's going to speak a lot to our listeners. The fact that yeah, you had built some success that others in your situation would clamor for, but you weren't content. You listened to your call. You appreciated your calling, but not even that. You acted on your call, and that's what led you to the Dekalb steering team. It's kind of like, I won't say accidentally fell into helping those under supervision, but definitely providentially you were led. So kind of walk us through your involvement with the Dekalb steering team. You mentioned your connection with Ms. Allman, of course. So just kind of walk us through what role you play. I know you're the co-chair. What role you play, and just how integral you are to the Dekalb steering team.
Okay. I'm again a co-chair, as Ms. Allman stated, and I assist with finding housing, jobs. Through my connection with the committee, there's a lot of jobs out there, housing opportunities. So when I encounter individuals, we just get them connected. Through her, we can get them insurance, free health insurance for a year. One of the individuals that really stands out that I would like to highlight is Ms. Janet Vargas, which recently happened. She is going to be enrolling in my CDL program with Georgia Piedmont. And she's the epitome of somebody who really has the drive to get it. Anything we ask her to do, she does it. Anything. Also, the last person I want to highlight is one of my drivers that I hired directly out of Metro Reentry facility. He's doing too well. But I almost sometimes shed a tear when I think about it because, he's told me if it weren't for you, I probably wouldn't have made it. And that kind of it kind of touches me to know that to be able to help impact someone and help them really change their life. And he's been home 2 years now and doing very well.
Wow, that's outstanding. And just share with us a little bit of the fulfillment you receive from working with individuals who are coming back into the community, and how what you offer gives them hope. And then you kind of spoke to that.
Right. Well, I mean, I enjoy doing it. I get a lot of fulfillment from it. It feels great, again, just to help someone. But also, I love to be able to get in their face and be like, nope, I'm not trying to hear that. No, I've been there. No, you can't tell me that. Like, you can't sell me on the other stuff. Like, I know I've been there. So being able to actually get with them and kind of like dismiss the excuses. Like, you can't do this. I'm standing in front of you. I own my home. I have a passport. I've been to like 6 countries. You name it, I've done it. You can too. So I enjoy that more than anything. Be able to show them that you really can make it and you can really do well. And your background, your past doesn't define you. It's just what you do with today. And I mean, it's all possible. It's beyond possible. I mean, it's all up to you. And that's why I spell 440 trucking the way I do. I misspell it. I spell it Forty. It's supposed to be 40, but I put a U in it because it's a reminder to me and anyone else I encounter that you make the difference in how your life turns out. Nobody else, just you. Oftentimes we blame external circumstances about why we can't make it. I don't hear none of that because you can do it. I believe, you can do it. I've done it. I have other people that around me that have done it. So it's doable. Just you got to believe in yourself enough to do it.
Well, this is just phenomenal. This is fantastic. I can't say enough, Kevin. We thank you so much for the impact that you've made with reentry services at large through connecting folks with housing, connecting with employment opportunities. And I just like to say to the listening audience, Kevin is a beautiful example of what your life can be by making great choices. But as we know, we didn't always have the wraparound services that we had today. So we're just very blessed and fortunate now that through DCS and Reentry Services, we have our community coordinators that are out there making relationships all the way from Augusta, Georgia to Albany. And so through that, we're able to help those individuals that are coming back out of incarceration back to the community and giving them a help up and not just a handout.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Any final remarks? Any plans for the future? Just any kind of concluding remarks for us?
Yeah, my plans for the future. January, we kick off the CDL program, which has almost been 2 years in the works. I've been working on this project. And, individuals now can get their CDL for free. So I'm excited about that. Why I love trucking so much is because trucking is the one industry where You don't need a degree or any of that to make a good bit of money. It all depends on your performance. And, you know, you have some people that go to jobs and say, oh, they don't pay enough. They don't, you know, we hear it all the time. They don't pay enough. When in trucking, you ain't drove enough. That's why you ain't made enough. You drive a little more, you make more because you're paid by how much you drive. That's why I'm so attached to trucking, because it's really production based. And if you put the work in, you'll make the money and you'll be able to put your life together. I have like 4 people right now I've placed at different trucking companies. All are doing well. And one is about to actually buy his own truck in January. So, again, the possibilities are endless. But that's what I have for the future CDL program. We're going to put some guys in these trucks that'll make some real money.
And I'd just like to piggyback off of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a collaborative partnership through 440 Trucking and Georgia Piedmont.
Okay.
And Reentry
Oh, yeah.
Services did a letter of support to get that funding
That's
for
right,
that
yes.
training.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these
They
partnerships
work together.
together to bring success for those we
Yes.
serve.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, listen, speaking of working together, I can't thank you enough for the value that you bring to the department, but most importantly, the value that you bring to others and through your work and through, truly it's a ministry. It truly is. And so we're grateful for the success that you've had, and we're grateful for your heart to share it with us and to share it with others and to partner in our mission, because when those that we work with and that we supervise, when they succeed, we share in that success and we succeed as well. So thank you. This has been just a phenomenal interview. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today, to share your story. And I truly hope that it inspires those who this touches and who have a chance to listen to this. And it motivates them to keep going. I think you have definitely truly enriched us with your story, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time, this has been our video success story interview with the Georgia Department of Community Supervision. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. We hope that you have been positively impacted by what was shared today. Thank you so much.